we created a program for manhole inspections using Survey 123 and field maps. So we got given the task to create an inspection workflow with the ability to add multiple inflow and infiltration observations per inspection. So I&I is when, if anyone doesn't know, I&I is for when stormwater or groundwater gets into your sanitary sewer system. And if you have a lot of that, it can cause a bunch of problems and cause you just cost you more money. You have to treat more water than you're supposed to be having to treat, and it can create backups and other issues. We eventually want to use this information so that we can analyze it and prioritize structural deficiencies in our manholes and go about fixing them. We want to make this all within our enterprise geodatabase. It's where we're moving a lot of our workflows to, especially our field workflows, directly into our data and not consuming credits, and also within the GIS system, and not so much in an asset management system like CityWorks. And we also want to make sure we could utilize the apps that our crew are getting really familiar and really starting to enjoy, Field Maps and Survey 123. So right off the bat, we knew that this was going to involve a bunch of related tables. And so we already had sanitary manholes within our system. They're versioned within a feature data set in our database. And related to that, we built a activity table to collect the inspections. This sits outside of that data set, so it gives us a little bit more flexibility with it. And that's related on a global ID to a GUID. And then the best situation we kind of found was to collect all of these separate I&I observations for each one that they find within a manhole inspection. We created another table, which is related to that second activity table. And this allows us to collect multiple I&I deficiencies on one single inspection. The problem with this system is that Survey 123 can be really picky and finicky when it comes to working with some enterprise data. It doesn't like traditional versioning at all. And in my application, we don't even need the manholes themselves in there. We're only worried about collecting an activity and then collecting these I&I observations as well. So I thought, maybe I can just publish just the tables into a service and use that. But nope. As we don't let you do that, you have to have some physical geographic feature in there. So to get around it, I created a dummy feature class, which really pained me, but it seemed like the best solution. This sits outside of our data sets, but within our database. It has a relationship to that manhole activity table, but it pretty much does nothing at all. All it does is gives us a non-versioned kind of source layer that we can use within our service to allow us to get this working in Survey 123. So maybe there's other ways to do this, but on a Sunday afternoon when I was trying to get this finished, this is what I came up with. So instead of having a service published with my manholes and the activity table and the observations table, I now have a service that is my GIS service layer, activities, and observations. So just this kind of half, those three. And my intention is in the future, as more and more of these workflows get built in our system, we'll be able to use this same GIS service layer for other combinations of different activity tables. I think we'll show the app right now really quickly. I'm using a collector here on the desktop just so I don't have to try and plug in my iPad and get that working. But in the field, the crew basically use the Field Maps app to navigate around. When they get to a manhole that they need to inspect, we have a link. When they click that link, it opens up Survey 123 on their iPad, which I have over here. leads them to the inspection. They fill everything out and they submit. And then they can go back to collector and go on and move with the next one. For the INI part of it, actually, wait, we'll come to that in a second. We'll come to that. So to get all of this to work in Survey 123 Connect, the survey itself references only that activity table, and the observations table, because of the relationship and it being in the same published service, comes along with it. So we can access and write to fields within that table from this. And these observations are built into a repeat within the survey, so that we can add multiple on just a single inspection. And that is done with an image map. So I've always wanted to use image map, and I've never found a use for it before until now. And then as soon as it came up, I thought this is perfect. So in our inspection, if the operator sees that INI is present in the manhole, when they hit yes, it opens up another section, and this allows them to add in an INI inspection. So the typical way INI is recorded is via kind of like a clock face, where the downstream flow is kind of coming away from us here at 6 p.m. behind us. And then looking at the manhole, they can record deficiencies in the manhole lining with the corresponding clock face. So maybe at 2 o'clock, as they're looking at it, they can say the wall is wet there. And then using the repeat, they can add more and say at 5 o'clock, there's a runner. Apparently these are known terms for INI flow. And so they can add as many of these as they want. Doing it this way means it's flexible, and we don't have to add a whole bunch of extra fields that may or may not get used. It only adds and writes to the database what they need to do. So yeah, image map. It basically uses one of the fields. This INI position is where the clock face kind of time part location is coming from. So that's 1 through 12. They're in my choice list within my survey. The question is in the survey. It's just to select one at a time and uses the image map appearance. And then, let's come to that in a second. You need to create an SVG, a scalable vector graphic, to make this work. So for that, I used Inkscape. You can just create an image. This is the image that they'll see. Bring this one up. Here it is. So there's an image in the background, and then on top of it is drawn these pathways that are basically a polygon around each of the clickable areas. And they are named and given the ID, which corresponds to our choice list. That's kind of important. You can export this then as an SVG. And SVG is basically an XML code. You can edit things in here, check and make sure that your this name matches your choice list name and that your IDs are correct. And then that goes into Survey 123 into, where am I? INI position. It gets put into the media image field as this SVG. This SVG is saved within the file structure of survey files. It's within the designs and the project, and within the media folder. That's right here. So yeah, and so the whole process, back to the start again, was that this begins in field maps. The user selects the asset, and this customized link here takes them to Survey 123, takes them to this specific survey, and we pass through the global ID of the manhole to that GUID file field in the activity table, so that it kind of creates that relationship between this asset and its own activity table. Yeah, and as I showed you, we complete that survey, submit it, and then when the survey is submitted, we have another published layer within a different service, which looks for manholes that have a value, a feature within the activity table within a certain date, and then that displayed on the map shows that that manhole was inspected. All of this data and information is now always linked, so it's really easy for us to show manholes based on various amounts of I&I or different parameters that we're seeing, and really just helps us to analyze this further and come up with a plan to tackle these defects. That part we haven't fully built out yet, but yeah, I'm sure it will be some kind of dashboard that will show all of this and help us start to wade through it, and probably an ArcGIS Pro project to help us find and start prioritizing things. Yeah, a couple new things in here that I had never done before. This weird dummy layer and publishing to make Survey 123 work with Enterprise in this way. Nested, multiple kind of grandchildren activity tables was new for us, and then also the image map, which is pretty great. That's it.
Thanks, Matt. That image map thing is super cool. I hadn't really seen that in action in Survey 123 before. Super fun.
Yeah, I've always wanted to do it. And then the example that they show in all the Esri pages and everything is like a car being inspected in different parts of the car. And I was like, well, we don't really work on cars here in Public Works. But yeah, finally found some use for it.
That's great. Well, I'll ask the on the surface question first, and then if other people have questions for Matt, by all means, jump in. Does Minnetonka have an asset management system?
We do. We have CityWorks.
Yeah.
We're making a plan to step away from it, and we're going to try the GIS only route for a while. So yeah, this is one of those. I think sanitary manhole inspections were set up in CityWorks, but it was never used. So that kind of shows you something. And now we have a televising truck, and we're just setting up our whole televising system. And so we're hoping that this will be done at the same time. There'll basically be a team of 2 people going out, whilst one is doing the, running the camera and doing the televising on the line work. The other person would pop in the manhole covers and doing these inspections. Manhole inspections can also be done in WinCan or televising system, but this is kind of a inspection light. It's not even a level 1 inspection. It's just some key things that we want to start collecting. So yeah, decided to do it this way.
Interesting. And follow up on that, what kind of motivations are there for you to be moving away from your asset management system? It sounds like maybe there's lack of use. Is there cost? Like what kind of reasons are there for you saying, you know what, let's go the GIS route?
Yeah, kind of all of those really. I think, CityWorks has been here for a while in Minnetonka, and it's never really been adopted to its potential. And even after trying and pushing things when I kind of came in here, it just wasn't, people had already kind of made up their minds about it, I think, a lot. The cost as well, it's expensive. We spend as much on CityWorks as we spend on the rest of GIS. And if we can do in GIS what we can do in CityWorks, but as part of that same cost, except for all of our, time, that's the better, I think. And then, they don't teach you CityWorks in your Masters of GIS. I learned GIS a lot, and IRA here is big, and where we like getting into things and creating workflows and making things customizable so that they're as simple as possible.
Mhm.
for the end user. And we find that we can do that in GIS way better than we can by figuring out the back end of
Yep.
CityWorks. So
Yeah. Nobody needs more applications to have to learn how to use. Absolutely.
exactly. And since we've been making a bunch of Survey 123s for other things, and the team really like it. The operators and the crew, they're now GPSing in Survey 123 and doing all sorts, and they're invested in it too. So
Very cool.
mhm.
All right. Did other people have questions for Matt? I see a couple of unmutes.
I see Tommy Lay
I
being mentioned in the chat.
have a question for you, Matt, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure.
So your CityWorks, presumably, I've never used CityWorks, but we have an asset management system as well. Presumably that has like a work order system as well.
Yes.
Are you replacing that functionality, or is that one that no one's really used and no one is asking for?
Yeah, we were using kind of part of it, not so much kind of work orders that stem from the public or from other business units. It was more,
Yeah,
we might have used work orders a little bit to arrange like priorities of inspections or things like that. Mostly we'd create open inspections and they would just kind of get checked off. So yeah, we are basically going to rebuild that to that level within our GIS.
and do you know which tool you're going to use primarily to do that?
I think we're kind of going to really rely on these activity tables a lot. And
Okay.
basically, each asset that needs work done will be its own work order, and we'll be able to release parts at a time. But if we just, if we create those on the fly, on the front end, sorry, and then by changing statuses of things within an experience builder, we're hoping that we can kind of, assign work as needed. Yeah. We're doing similar things with systems for our natural resources teams, and also streets as well. So we're kind of building 3 whole new asset management systems this year, all within
Sure.
GIS. Yeah,
Right.
and that's not to say we wouldn't go with CityWorks again in the future or look at Cartograph. We did some review of a few vendors out there, and we still haven't been blown away. I think, Zach, do you use Elements?
Yes.
Yeah, that one is a great one too. And I think that's a nice lighter one that gives some of that rather than these, behemoth kind of asset management systems.
Yeah, we've had a request recently to look into developing something similar as a possible alternative to even like a third program. So I was just kind of curious how you might be handling the work order versus just like a status, like if you had work orders that were assigned and like email sending and all that kind of stuff, because that is one thing that an asset management like Elements can do that's tougher in GIS.
Oh, for sure.
So yeah.
No, and I would imagine there'll be a level of automation through Power Automate and Microsoft apps there to help us with some of that too.